I love Clash of Clans, and most of their updates are generally well received, even if it wasn't particularly good. The Clash of Clans community is just pretty forgiving and usually more relaxed than the other games. But the Clash team is not immune to criticism. There have been times when the community did not agree with something and forced the team to act upon it. From nerfs that would force Supercell to refund probably millions of dollars, to changes that would lead to mass uninstalls, here are the most controversial updates in Clash of Clans history. Now, I do want to say one thing. Controversial doesn't mean the worst changes. In fact, some of them were for the better and improved the game in the long run. I'm simply taking a look at those updates that caused the most negative initial reaction from the community. So, with that being said, let's get right into it.
Let's do this.
September 2014 was a W for the free-to-play player. You could finally upgrade walls with Elixir, so you could now upgrade them even faster with the loot you already had and probably didn't even use. There was one simple condition. You had to be upgrading it to level 7 or higher for you to be able to upgrade it with Elixir. Simple enough, right? This update was a hit. But if it's in the video, surely something must have gone wrong. Turns out this update was so good that everyone was maxing out their walls, stealing all that juicy elixir from players to bring back home and upgrade even more walls, and then go back and steal some more. But wait a minute, if everyone's using all their elixir on walls, how are people finding elixir to steal? Well, you'd be right to wonder. Turns out the update was causing an elixir drought, specifically for the lower town halls. This forced Supercell to make some tweaks to the recent changes and up the requirement from level 7 walls to level 9. And boy were those lower town halls upset. They felt Supercell had bamboozled them, giving them something and then taking it away just weeks later. Now, even though many were upset by this change, everyone kinda got over it a couple months later, and years later this requirement would be dropped to level 5 anyways when the game's economy was better and walls were cheap enough to not even matter. What a beautiful comeback story. Flags, I love them. I flew the US one next to my Dark Elixir drills because America. Nah, it's because I was born here. I do wish they had my parents' countries on there, but sadly there wasn't. But I'm not gonna go full Karen mode because they don't have 2 flags out of the 254 that are globally recognized. No, there's no harm in wanting to represent where you're from, and if your flag isn't on there, it's not the end of the world. It's just a game. That's why to me, it doesn't make any sense that all national flags were removed from the game because they want to keep the Clash universe separate from real life references when they're constantly referencing the real world. It's speculated that they couldn't make everyone happy because they kept asking to add more flags, so they just removed them instead because it was easier to do that. But I think it ultimately came down to political reasons, you know, due to ongoing wars, conflicts, and other stuff that you probably don't care about. This certainly isn't something to trip over. I mean, who cares? It's flags. But it has said a lot of players that I think Supercell's vague responses to all of this didn't help much. Like I said, no harm in wanting to represent your country, and it's apparent that this decision was solely Supercell's decision and not the community at all. Raid Shop Nerfs. So when the Clan Capital update hit, they added a section to the trader shop to spend raid medals. In it are tons of stuff you can buy, like resources and magic items. In the original announcement, everything had a purchase limit of 3, including resources. However, on release, there was a change. There was no cap on the resources. So for about a year, you could spend all your raid medals every week on just gold if you wanted to, which was pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe they didn't think that one through, and it did provide insane value, but it helped with upgrades a lot, especially for casual players like me who aren't always playing. I maybe have the time to upgrade a building or 2 a week with these insane ass prices. But it seems like the last minute change wasn't very cash money and they ended up changing it again. But instead of going back to the original purchase limit of 3, they changed it to 1. Just 1. That's not even half a wall for me. What the f? The problem here is giving the community something great, whether intended or not, and then just taking it away. That's the reason it upsets so many. The intentions were probably good, but once it's in the game and you change it, it kind of just feels like they're trying to nerf our progression. Oh, it's too good, we gotta nerf it. For casual and free-to-play players, the change was just very shitty. Sure, like I said earlier, perhaps they didn't think that one through, and an argument can be made that this change is for the better, but I just wish they didn't limit it to 1 per week and kept the original 3 limit. Now, out of all of these in this video, this one's still kind of ongoing, so this may change in the near future. But for the past month of Clash, this has been the most controversial change yet, at least in terms of recent changes. On July 2014, there was a new update called Hero Changes. To sum it up, the update was a giant ass balancing update along with some quality of life changes. It was a lot. But one of the main changes that had people talking was something the team called Heroes version 2.0, where heroes were completely reworked. I'm gonna try and condense this as much as I can, but if you want to read up on it, links will be down below. So, heroes could no longer be lured half across the map. Instead, they now attack troops in a limited territory around their platform. Both of their abilities were buffed greatly and balanced between levels. Damage and hit points increased at lower levels but greatly reduced at higher levels. And heroes now specialized in certain roles, so their stats reflected what their purpose was in the field. Basically, heroes were now significantly weaker, but in turn with better abilities, and they were smarter. Now, these changes improved heroes in the long term, and today heroes wouldn't be what they are without these changes. However, it didn't go as smoothly as Supercell thought, and this update was absolutely shit on. Here are some comparison graphs that were posted on Reddit of just how much the changes were. As you might expect, not a lot of people were on board with these drastic changes, and I'm not exaggerating. The update was so hated on that it started a wave of refunds. Players would submit a claim saying that Clash of Clans had changed way too much and felt the money they had spent the past few months went straight down the drain after these changes. And yes, a lot of people got their money back with no effect on their account because at the time, negative gems didn't even exist. Some players just took the money and put it right back into the game. It was like Christmas. Now, over time, the heroes did get some updates and balancing, but everyone's initial impression on this update was not very good. However, this is nothing compared to another update that forced Supercell to implement the negative gem system. The Town Hall 11 update in December 2015. You may be familiar with it because I won't shut up about it on this channel. The new Town Hall 11 wasn't exactly the issue here, it was everything else in the update that would eventually make the game better long term, but it had a very rocky start. Farming. It used to be that you left your town hall outside because it was common knowledge that in doing so, somebody would swoop in, take your town hall, and leave. That's because they would get trophies and you would get a shield. It was a win-win, and this system was important for farming. The cycle would repeat itself every time you got online, attacked, lost your shield, and got off. And if you were trophy pushing or using a hybrid base, your town hall was inside. However, Supercell didn't like this way of farming as it undermined the game's core and lessened the need for the game's basics like designing a good base for defenses and protecting your loot. And honestly, they had a point. This way of farming was kind of lazy and easy, and it didn't push anyone to get creative with their armies or bases because all that mattered was having that shield to protect your loot. But one thing that Supercell was forgetting is that no one was really complaining or begging for a change. Regardless, in the Town Hall 11 update, they aimed to put a stop to this beloved farming method. Taking a town hall no longer gave you a star, so just taking the town hall for trophies didn't work anymore. It also didn't give the defender a shield, and the town hall now held loot inside. This forced everyone to put their town hall inside the base and give up their old farming methods. To combat these changes, they implemented the guard system, but nobody really cared about any remedies. The town hall changes were so drastic that a lot of players were quitting the game, selling their account, getting refunds, and this caused a loot drought, where no one could find loot to attack because of recent changes that made it harder to find loot, as well as the fact that a huge percentage of the player base wasn't even playing anymore. Shortly after this update as well, Supercell implemented negative gems, where if you were to refund your purchase, the gems would be deducted from your account even if you had zero. Fortunately, things got better from here. The team really aimed to make things better with improvements to shield, guard, loot bonus, new features like star bonus, making armies cheaper. There were so many changes. And by 2017, when the builder base came out, a lot of these players that quit in 2015 would return to find a more polished experience. Overall, I think the update was very necessary for the game's long-term health, but you can't forget about how it was received at first. It was a shit show. The game was pretty much on life support. So, the builder base. It introduced a lot of cool features, and one of them being the clock tower. At launch, it was really different from what it is today. At level 1, for 5 minutes, the clock tower would boost everything in the village by 10 times, and the cooldown was only 8 hours, so you could activate this boost 2 times a day. Everyone loved this thing because it provided insane value, and it felt like the most free-to-play thing ever. However, it seemed like it was too good because a month after it was added, it got a huge nerf. And let's just say that players were not a big fan of this change. The boost duration was cut in half for all levels, the multiplier was decreased from 10 to 8, and the cooldown only reduced by an hour. Essentially, what the team had done was slice the effectiveness of the clock tower in half because it, quote, provided too much free upgrade time. This shattered the ratings of the App Store. It felt like Supercell was once again driving away their free-to-play players, nerfing something that was actually good. But in defense of Supercell, the clock tower was a heck of a building and made things much faster. Everyone would have been maxed out very quick, which might seem good, but honestly, what's the fun about maxing out so quick and having nothing else to do? Over time, the clock tower was reworked, and I think it's at a good place right now, and I really don't have any complaints about it anymore. But that nerf, man, good times. Shovels. Part of the team's venture to add unique magic items to the game, which had a very rocky start, but ended up being worth the gems years later. Well, at least to me, I don't know. In December 2018, shovels were announced and the community loved the idea, but hated the price. Most agreed on one thing: they would buy it if it wasn't 500 gems. And to make things even worse, it was $5 to move once. So if you change your mind later, well, too bad. Just buy the shovel again, I guess. This was a pretty controversial addition to the game because they took something players really wanted and have been asking for years and just slapped a paywall on it, a really expensive one. All because they could. Who's telling them to make it cheaper, you know? Complaints were all over Reddit about this, and unfortunately the price would never change. Luckily though, there were attempts to make it more accessible by doing various discount deals and including it in pass and the events. Over time it became easier to obtain, and you rarely ever had to pay full price for just one, unless you really needed one, like an emergency situation, or you didn't want to wait. But I don't know what emergency you need to have to buy a shovel for 500 gems. Anyways, in 2022 they did improve it by making all obstacles with a shovel permanently movable. Sadly, the change was not retroactive, meaning that any obstacles you did move previously with shovels were not part of this update. It did leave me a little salty, but I can't lie. I think the shovel is well worth it now. Being able to use one shovel and move it at any point is pretty good. But yeah, when the magic item was introduced, it was not the most popular addition to the game. Alright, this video wouldn't be complete unless I talk about the removal of global chat. Now, because everyone's aware of this and probably tired of hearing about it, I'll try and keep it short. Global chat was exactly what it sounds like. A chat with random people, sometimes half across the world, and this chat was completely separate from your clan chat. Global was a really good place to recruit new members as well without having to leave the game. And also, it was just a fun place to be. You get to talk to random people. Global was loved by many and hated by few, but it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Global chat was home to some of the worst bullying, harassment, scams, and illegal activities. All while having tons of minors there. What could possibly go wrong? Supercell tried to maintain order, but it proved to be too difficult because global chat wasn't just one chat room. There were multiple chat rooms for every language in the game. And sometimes there were people talking a language that wasn't even supported by the game. They would have had to hire hundreds and maybe thousands of moderators to always keep an eye out. Supercell did not want to do that, and honestly, that's completely understandable. Even though everyone loved Global, it had some serious issues that couldn't really be fixed. In October 2019, Global would be removed from the game after 8 years. I'm sure you can imagine how upset everyone was, especially that removing Global also removed the best method to recruit members. Supercell would try to introduce a new recruitment system, but a lot of players weren't a big fan of it due to its flaws, and it's still kind of, yeah. Today, most have moved on from caring about Global, but it'll always be remembered. So guys, that's pretty much it. I think I've got it all. I mean, I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but they weren't all that controversial. I was going to mention like some visual changes, some specific troop balances, but those are very specific and they weren't even that big of a deal, so yeah. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you guys think down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a gaming out. Peace!